this clip, and if you're not watching on Prisonplanet.tv, it's much more powerful on video. So go to Infowars.com. The Drudge Report had it linked yesterday as well in red. But watching Gingrich is even more powerful. But notice everything Gingrich says, then they show the flip-flop of him. This is a guy who said he wants to end the family and have a world socialist government. He's a member of an actual futurist Illuminati group. I've read his quotes here. I mean, he was picked out of obscurity for a reason. He is actually a made initiate. Okay, Gingrich was meant to take over the Republican Revolution of 94. He's meant to be a ringer for Obama now. Well, let's go ahead and play this Ron Paul video. Let's get this out to everybody. Here it is.
I think this is the core challenge of America, is that beyond the words is a real question of policy and a real question of values and a real question of seriousness. The real question of policy.
We don't always see eye to eye, do we, Newt?
No, but we do agree our country must take action to address climate change.
Newt Gingrich has been on both sides of a long list of issues, sometimes in the same week.
I don't think right-wing social engineering is any more desirable than left-wing social engineering.
With allies like that, who needs the left?
It cuts Paul Ryan off at the knees. It supports the Obama administration. There is no explanation for it.
And a real question of value. Question of value. If you want to put people in jail, let's look at the politicians who created the environment, the politicians who profited from the environment, politicians who profited from the environment.
Newt Gingrich on the defense for taking $1.5 million.
After he left Congress, Freddie Mac paid Gingrich at least $1.6 million.
$1.6 million, some of it just before the housing market collapsed.
Newt Gingrich can ridicule Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac publicly while privately pocketing millions.
That's hardcore lobbying, and that's what Newt Gingrich was doing.
The politicians who profited from the environment.
There are now reports about controversial ties to the healthcare industry.
A think tank founded by Newt Gingrich collected at least $37 million from major healthcare companies. The group supports individual mandates.
Newt Gingrich renewed his support for an individual mandate, a key tenet of President Obama's healthcare law.
Support for an individual mandate? Folks, don't ask me to explain this.
And a real question of seriousness. Question of seriousness.
Everything that Gingrich railed against when he was in the House, he went the other way when he got paid to go the other way.
You're an embarrassment to our party.
He's flipped and flopped based on who's paying him.
He's demonstrating himself to be the very essence of the Washington insiders.
It's about serial hypocrisy.
It's wrong to go around and adopt radically different positions, because then people have to ask themselves, what will you tell me next time?
Ron Paul, ladies and gentlemen. He's not a sellout like Gingrich.
Iodine protection packs from him.
And that's what Stuart Rhodes talked about last night with us. We're going to play 10 minutes from InfoWars Nightly News coming up later in the hour, where Stuart Rhodes has never talked like this. He said, we're basically 2 minutes to midnight, 1774, 1775. And this is what Alexander Solzhenitsyn talked about when the NKVD, the domestic KGB, in this case it was Leningrad, had arrested about half the city in a year, raping women, killing children, and people would just wait in their houses shivering to be picked up next by a few thousand secret police. And Solzhenitsyn got picked up by him and lived decades in a slave camp near the Arctic Circle, and he talked later how they burned with anger that they hadn't waited with hatchets and pokers and knives down in the basement, down in the entryway when the secret police came, because the whole organ of the state would have ground to a halt in minutes if they would have taken action. I'm not saying that's the case, but the system is planning to basically come after people, just like in the Bob Marley song where Sheriff John Brown comes down the road to shoot him, and Sheriff John Brown's pulling his gun. What are you going to do? And the globalists know what they're doing. They've got actuary psychological profiles. They've trained the military and police, prepare for war with libertarians and conservatives, and they're going to even provocateur it if they have to. Stage events and then send the military and police in against people who are going to then fight back, and it's going to be horrible. And it's not good for the domestic security forces that have been maneuvered into this position, and it's not good for the American people. We need to bring the banksters to justice. There's only a couple hundred of them. They've all committed crimes publicly. They run the New World Order. All right, I'm going to go to Watson for this segment and part of the next, and he'll be gone soon because he's working on a big report. He joins us from England. We do have Max Kaiser on the latest on the economy in the last 30 minutes. Presidential candidate Gary Johnson, Republican, is going to be joining us as well. But right now, let's go to Paul Watson. Paul Watson has the headline, Chinese general threatens Third World War to protect Iran. That was an earlier variant of the report. There's also professors and other officials saying it. Here's another one. Chinese government official. U.S. threat to Pakistan is threat to China. We've seen Russian saber-rattling, moving ships into the Mediterranean up against Syria, blocking routes for NATO in to Afghanistan. Pakistan doing the same thing. I mean, it's like General Hamid Gul said yesterday, former head of Pakistani intelligence. It's as if the people running America want to destroy us. And that is the plan. Let's go to Paul Watson. Paul Watson, break down. Your wife lives in England, lived there many years, but she is from China, speaks fluent Chinese, and she helped you go through the Chinese national news with what they're saying right now. And this is not getting any attention in the U.S. This is breaking news. Tell us about these key reports by Paul Joseph Watson and Ihan.
Well, Alex, the first report was Chinese general threatens Third World War to protect Iran, and that's a quote, Third World War. And it turns out that this guy is not only a professor, he's also a highly decorated general. He's won prestigious awards. He's been an advisor on top Chinese military panels. He's also a key military expert for Chinese state media. And he basically came out and said that, quote, China will not hesitate to protect Iran even with a Third World War. And that was discussed by other people in the Chinese media. And then we had a separate report which we found in the Chinese media, which was not in the English language media, so it's an English language media exclusive, which is out of China's central television, and it's actually the website Zhongxija, which reports that, and that's a military news website which is well respected in China for talking about military developments. And this is a separate unnamed government official who said, quote, any threat to Pakistan is a threat to China. And it turns out that in response to US troops massing on the border of Pakistan, of course, on Sunday we had the NATO bombing on Pakistan troops. In response to those US troops massing, China, in a massive war game that only just finished a few days ago, sent their second artillery PLA troops armed with these sophisticated tactical defense missiles to northwestern China, just outside the border with Pakistan, and had this massive joint war game with the Pakistani military. So we'll get further into it after the break.
Yeah, stay there. So you got national Chinese television, the top military advisor, former general. And see how Prisonplanet.com takes a headline the mainstream media would have top Chinese general threatens nuclear war. But we always hold back. By the time we're done with it, it's Chinese government official. U.S. threat to Pakistan is threat to China. We'll be right back.
We're on the march.
We are back live. Thank you for joining us. Max Kaiser is coming up, one of our frequent financial analyst guests the last 30 minutes. Republican presidential candidate Gary Johnson to give us his view on a lot of things. You'll notice we're not talking about Herman Cain. You know, a few weeks ago I said I believe a lot of this is political, but where there's smoke, there's fire. I can take one look at the way Herman Cain behaves, how he acts, where he works, and the fact that he's lied about Ron Paul and been caught lying. And he lies very well. How dare you say I call people dumb that want to audit the Fed? I have never said any such thing. This is ridiculous. You shouldn't believe what you see on the internet. And Ron Paul goes, really? And of course, it's in Cain's book, and he said it over and over again when he's guest hosting for Neil Wartz. So that's what's going on. That's what's happening. And you notice most of these neocon talk show hosts will not criticize people like Newt Gingrich, who you might as well have Al Gore. In fact, Al Gore would be better because he's basically the same type person, complete with, you know, the same personal activities, but you know it's Al Gore. With Newt Gingrich, he's got all these Sean Hannity lapdogs in people. In fact, I was visiting my parents last night, and it's like an hour-long interview with Newt Gingrich, with Sean Hannity with those painted-on eyebrows, sitting there, playing the part of Leave It to Beaver, going, gee, Dad, how are you going to save us? And Gingrich sitting there just lying at people and acting like the smart grandfather when he is a larcenist, anti-American, sworn to destroy this country, globalist, who just supports everything. And of course he supported single payer. You heard those clips we played earlier. That's because the insurance lobby gave him $37 million just to go around and promote it on TV and call it conservative. The guy has press conferences with Hillary Clinton. $37 million. $37 million to Gingrich, the warthog, alone. Because the insurance companies on record wrote the health care bill out of the Mitt Romney-style scam. He wrote the original model, which they wrote. He's the one he brought forward. Because it makes 35 million people buy insurance from them and allows insurance companies to tell doctors what type of treatment they can give. That's the death panel. And it's on. You're going to buy it, and we're going to set the health care. Got it? And here's Newt Gingrich. And you know what? You don't like him, you got Mitt Romney. The New World Order took over because they're deceptive. The New World Order took over because they know how to control both parties. And whoever they're promoting is going to sell you out. So we've got China talking about nuclear war with the U.S. We've got Russia threatening to attack Eastern Europe if missiles are moved in there. We've got aircraft carriers with nukes showing up. We've got Europe imploding into a Bank of the World. And they're saying, oh, the IMF and World Bank will now take over the planet. This contagion will spread to America. I saw that in the news this morning. Here's the Statesman. Fed brokers deal to aid Europe. It should read, North American arm of private banking cartel aids its European subsidiary, which is the main head subsidiary. But you've got people that just have no idea that the Federal Reserve's private. They have no idea which end is up, and they're just wrong. Oh, look, thank goodness the Fed is saving Europe, which is tax money we're going to have to pay. Oh, goody gumdrops. Aren't we just in a wonderful position? I'm going back to Watson here. So, no, I'm not going to talk about Herman Cain and this woman who looks very credible compared to the others and his thousands of phone calls to her now, including just a few weeks ago and 4:15 in the morning. And, by the way, the media found out about her. The media went to her. That's now been confirmed. People blew the whistle. Herman Cain, for almost 14 years, has been snuggling up to her. And you know what? If he went public and admitted he'd done it, it would not, I mean, I'm not in condoning or saying it's a great thing, but it's human. You know, King David had his buddy and best friend sent off on a death mission because he lusted after his wife. But his heart was right. He repented, and God said, you're a man after my own heart. I'm not judging Herman Cain for that. The fact that he is the best liar I've probably ever seen. I mean, when he told Ron Paul was a liar, I thought, man, I've heard him say that. It doesn't his book say that, but I had to go check. I'm like, man, that was convincing. Sure enough, he's a liar. So when he said, I
think this is the core challenge of America, is that beyond the words is a real question of policy and a real question of values and a real question of seriousness. The real question of policy.
We don't always see eye to eye, do we, Newt?
No, but we do agree on values. If you want to put people in jail, let's look at the politicians who created the environment, the politicians who profited from the environment, politicians who profited from the environment.
Newt Gingrich on the defense for taking $1.5 million.
After he left Congress, Freddie Mac paid Gingrich at least $1.6 million.
$1.6 million, some of it just before the housing market collapsed.
Newt Gingrich can ridicule.
Our country must take action to address climate change.
Newt Gingrich has been on both sides of a long list of issues, sometimes in the same week.
I don't think right-wing social engineering is any more desirable than left-wing social engineering.
With allies like that, who needs the left?
It cuts Paul Ryan off at the knees. It supports the Obama administration. There is no explanation for it.
And a real question of value.
Actual futurist Illuminati group. I've read his quotes here. I mean, he was picked out of obscurity for a reason. He is actually a made initiate. Okay, Gingrich was meant to take over the Republican Revolution of 94. He's meant to be a ringer for Obama now. Well, let's go ahead and play this Ron Paul video. Let's get this out to everybody. Here it is. Play this clip. And if you're not watching on Prisonplanet.tv, it's much more powerful on video. So go to Infowars.com. The Drudge Report had it linked yesterday as well in red. But watching Gingrich is even more powerful. But notice everything Gingrich says, then they show the flip-flop of him. This is a guy who said he wants to end the family and have a world socialist government. He's a member of an